tuning into the news segment from the Roll for Crit podcast, a podcast released weekly on Wednesdays, all about your favorite things in tabletop and board gaming. This week, we are joined by the game designer of Book of Villainy as well as Mansplaining, who also now brings their creativity to Funko Games, Fertessa Allyse. So we hope you're excited to hear what's been happening in the world of board gaming for the week of February 21st, 2022.
This week in Capitalism Gone Awry, we have a story involving Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast, who we've been talking about a lot lately because they had a whole turnover with new CEOs taking over and moving up in the world from various positions between those two. Wizards of the Coast, of course, being a subsidiary of Hasbro. And now we're talking about some of the financial details of the company that could affect their creative output as well. A company called Alta Fox Capital Management. Essentially, they are a group of investors, stock activists. I don't fully understand what these people do. Maybe we can get into that a little bit later. They have suggested strongly, to me, it almost reads like a threat, that they believe it is in Hasbro's best interest to split Wizards of the Coast off into its own separate company, primarily because they think that as a result of doing so, the stock value of both Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast will rise and make a lot more money for the owners of those stocks. As a quote, they said, "We believe Wizards of the Coast would be worth more than $100 per share today as an independent business. We also anticipate it would be one of the most exciting and valuable specialty gaming businesses in the world, particularly if it were to refocus investment on core intellectual property and eliminate loss-driving speculative bets on non-core franchises." We can talk about what maybe some of that might mean. This also comes in the wake of Hasbro losing their contract to print Disney-related merchandise. Mattel has that now, apparently. So stockholders are, I think, looking for something to lift their spirits on that front. I am not a financial expert, but I am curious, Fertessa, what you think about this, both from the perspective of kind of the stockholder perspective and why they might be saying this, and also whether or not you even think this could happen, will happen. Would Hasbro listen to these people, or is this just a pipe dream?
I mean, to be very honest, I have no idea about this, and for the interest of my job, I will continue to have no idea about this, but I would love to hear your take on these wonderful things.
Yeah, I mean, join the club. I still don't fully understand everything that's involved in this. I guess how about let me first frame it in maybe a slightly more generic, broad-reaching way. If Wizards of the Coast did split off, what sorts of changes might you imagine we could see in terms of the franchises they put out? Like right now, I think they mostly focus on Dungeons and Dragons and Magic, right? Are the big two. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like there is a world in which they might focus on different properties, or does it just make sense kind of that those would be the big honchos still?
I mean, I'm not entirely up to date on their full portfolio more than Magic, but I feel like they have the potential to do anything that they absolutely want to. So that one, I'm going to just put a wait and see on that one.
Yeah, Will, maybe you know a little bit more. I know Hasbro has a lot of proproperties. Is there anything specifically Wizards of the Coast that like they could dig into that maybe I don't fully understand this. Again, this quote from Alta Fox, who said they want them to stop making speculative bets on non-core franchises. Mm-hmm. What are these non-core franchises? Like the Transformers card game that didn't quite work out? That's all I can think of.
That's the only thing I could think. I've looked into this a bit more, and someone who's not only enjoys Hasbro properties but also Magic Gathering and D&D. Like, I've seen things that are great things. They made a lot of mistakes. But I'll just say it now, to me, this feels like, I don't know, this popped in my head a while ago when I first heard it, like a shark telling me to get away from the river and join it in the water because I should be afraid of the crocodile.
I like this, like an Aesop's fable or
Yeah,
something.
like the way they talk is they're not talking about what Wizards could do to make the fan base better, though they're sort of using some words like activist in there to try to get us on their side. But really, they're just saying that it can be worth more.
Right.
And like they have a site called Free the Wizard, which includes a custom, like they made a magic card look like about freeing wizards and stuff.
Wait, this is like they actually made a whole website dedicated to this cause?
Yes, they did.
Okay, I did not know that.
And there's a video, and the video alone just made, first of all, they have a board of directors, and they have like one pro Magic player as well as someone else is like, he plays board games, which I'm like, oh yeah, there's scenes like that. But in the video, they literally say like Wizards of the Coast have D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, and Magic the Gathering, both with maniac fan bases. And I'm like, oh, okay. I see how you see us now. Like, not even loyal, not even trying to hide it. It really is just they think they could squeeze more money. And unfortunately, like, if they said things like, we're going to try to make sure, the D&D books, wider variety of topics, maybe more inclusivity, Magic Gathering, make it so more reprints happen, try to get better card stock. They have said nothing like that.
Right. Yeah, it seems clear to me that this is, like you said, it's purely financial.
Yeah, if anything, I think the only thing I can imagine happening if this were to be split off, which Hasbro's not going to do it, is NFTs. That would be my guess.
And let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll talk about NFTs in a minute.
The only reason I think they have done this is because we've talked about the new CEO. I think he's actually, he was announced, but I think he's actually taking the seat this week or next.
Mm-hmm.
So this is them trying to change the guard. I think that's really what this comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, another quote from this letter is, if corrective action is not taken in the near term, we fear there will be an irreversible impairment of value at Hasbro, which sounds like a fancy way of saying, hey, if you're not careful, this place could set on fire or something if you don't have some protection. Like, it really sounds like blackmail or something. It's such an aggressive way to phrase that. It gives me some kind of shady vibes. I guess I do think Wizards of the Coast, I mean, those properties are big enough, like they could stand on their own. But like you said, why would Hasbro do that?
Not only like they even, I don't know where they said, but it was like in other articles I read, like they said, like, yeah, we would stop doing all their digital stuff and focus just on like the books and cards. I'm like, no, you should. If you want these properties to grow, they should make the TVs, the movies. Yes, there was that really bad D&D game released a while back, but I think that doesn't mean video games are not the place. It means you need to make a good one.
Yeah, and they are, as we've said, they're in active development on movies and TV shows and all that stuff for some of these franchises. So yeah, it's an interesting story, and obviously, I guess they have a big enough clout to get noticed and have this be publicized. But I do not know. I do not follow the stock market. I'm not sure if this means anything. This could just be someone crying for attention. And I
think it sort of falls more into that. It's more PR move than anything. Maybe some of these people they suggested make it on their board. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see. But it, like I said, this is not the revolution one would hope for.
Well, like both of you said, wait and see. I think that seems to be the name of the game these days with announcements like this. Mm-hmm. Whether we'll be talking about this in a year or we will never, ever remember this happened again. It amounts to nothing. I don't know, but let's move on to a completely non-controversial subject that we can all talk about with ease. Alluded to before, NFTs and blockchain as well. So not that long ago, maybe a month or so ago, Kickstarter, which of course has a lot of board game project on it, I don't need to tell anybody listening to this, announced that they are going to completely change their infrastructure to make it run on blockchain technology. And I still, once again, it's another thing I don't fully understand. I don't think anyone fully really understood the benefits of it other than, maybe for as a publicity thing. But now they have come out with a statement based on the negative reaction I think has been largely negative from everything that I've seen. And they've said that they are slowing this process down. To summarize it a little bit, they said, quote, "We will not move Kickstarter.com onto the new protocol unless it has been tested. They'll be establishing an advisory council made up of a diverse range of Kickstarter users and participants to inform their next steps. And they also said that they are trying to limit their environmental impact, and they'll be looking at that because, of course, that's one of the biggest criticisms of NFTs and blockchain tech. And we can talk about Kickstarter and what that means exactly. Alongside this, the RPG and publisher Chaosium also had plans to make NFTs with a company called Vive, or perhaps it's Vivi. I don't know. It's Veve. They were going to put out NFTs. This was in the works for a few years. And they also, in response to backlash as of late, said they are halting those plans. They're not doing it at all. This is, of course, some companies are doing NFTs in the board game world. Now some of them are looking at what fans are saying and deciding not to go through with it. Fertessa, what's your stance on the NFTs or what do you think about these companies just kind of going back on their word on this stuff? Do you think it's true that they're trying to listen to the people and do the right thing, or is it maybe just a bunch of PR or something like that?
Well, no surprise to anyone, I don't have any stance on the NFTs, but I will say
Understood.
that I've been, looking at the articles. I saw BGG posted a new article with regards to the FAQ Kickstarter posted, kind of explaining their stance on how they were going to utilize NFTs. So it seems like the situation is constantly updating, and they're trying to find a middle ground. I'm not aware of anything with Chaosium. I'm not familiar with that company, but as far as with Kickstarter, I know that is still developing, and I just will continue to watch it with my neutral eye.
Yeah, it's one of those, there's all these, every once in a while there's some new type of tech that emerges, and it seems like everybody wants to be a part of it in some way. What's weird to me about NFTs is not even regarding anything about my own personal stance on them, which, to be honest, is like ranges from negative to just neutral because I just don't understand half of it. But to even potentially, like, I actually think in some cases there are maybe some interesting uses for it. But what's weird to me about it is the only time I ever see them brought up on the internet is people saying they hate them. And like, clearly there must be people who like them because companies are still doing it and they must be making money somewhere. But I've never seen an announcement about NFTs from anyone where the response was, "Yay, thank you." So I'm like, where are those people? Where do those people exist? I mean, Will or Fertessa, either one of you, is there is that just different corners of the internet, like a vocal minority that I'm seeing?
I think that's what it is, because I was going to an escape room like one of these past weekends, and on the way there was an NFT museum, had its own building, and I was like, huh.
Where is this located?
Seattle.
Okay, interesting. Was this like was it like you pay for an escape room ticket and you get the NFT museum for free, or?
No, it was his own separate building. I just happened to walk past it, and I was like, huh, okay.
Wow, they're moving fast. I mean, you get to like look at an NFT framed on the wall and take it home or something, I guess.
That was the question. I was like, I thought the point was there was no physical presence, but I don't know too much about it anyway, so.
Yeah, I think sometimes there is. Maybe Will, you're the resident NFT expert, so
my resident just being the guy who's more strongly.
You know 5% more about it than I do. That makes you the expert. I mean, what do you think specifically about the Kickstarter response or Chaosium to this?
Yeah, I think it's it's just a response to their general audience. Like you said, it's usually negative. I mean, there obviously I'm sure there's a subreddit with a plenty enough size population in favor of NFTs for various reasons. But I don't know how much crossover that is in the board game world. I know we didn't talk about it, but there were some people who made NFTs of Magic card art. I can't remember if it's a card or just the art. Either way, it wasn't with Wizards' consent, and Wizards sued them.
Makes sense.
So, like, I don't know, like, if that was like the few board game NFT, like, yeah, we'll do something, and it just backfired horribly.
Right.
I have seen a lot of celebrities post that, so it could be one of those things that was cool in the celebrity circle and like leaked its way out, and that's why it's harder to see, more of a presence or the collector circle or something like that.
Right. The cool kids are doing it, and I am not one of the cool kids. Interestingly, I think about these announcements, Chaosium seems pretty clear cut that they are not going to be going forward with it. Kickstarters is very much like they continually say, we are not going to do this until we figure it out. But never do they say, like, we aren't going to do it. It seems pretty clear it's going to happen.
I feel it's more along the lines, oftentimes, the way companies phrase things is they always want to leave doors open.
Right. I mean, the part I take most issue with is we will not move onto the new protocol unless it has been tested. So that your plan before was not to test it? Like, is that a new development? That's kind of worrisome to me, but I guess they're just trying to reassure people. Anyway, I still don't get it, but clearly, like, NFTs are not going anywhere anytime soon, for better or worse. I know I've been seeing a lot of controversy lately too with Van Ryder Games, who does a lot of games that we love, Final Girl and Detective City of Angels, and they are doing a whole NFT thing right now, and a lot of people aren't happy about it, but they have defended it, and they're like going with it gung-ho, as opposed to some of these other companies that are stepping back a little bit. So I don't know. There's a lot to chew on there, and we'll see exactly what occurs with these companies. And again, if this Kickstarter overhaul like actually does anything, or if anyone will notice it on the front end versus what's going on underneath. Anyway, let's talk about some things that are actually just kind of fun and kooky and weird. And that's some new game announcements that I thought maybe were worth mentioning. I'll run through them quickly and then we can talk about them a little bit. First is a new 2-player version of Sobek, which is from Bruno Cathala and Sebastian Pochon. That's probably how you say his name. And this is specifically a 2-player version of Sobek, which previously was 2 to 4, but I don't think it was quite ideal at 2 players. And, designers of 5 Tribes, Jaipur, plenty of other big titles. This is kind of like a market collection game. We also got 2 announcements of BBC series adaptations. First, there's another Doctor Who RPG from Cubicle 7 called Doctors and Daleks, which is based on D&D 5e. Once again, bringing it back to D&D. We've also got Lucky Duck, who announced they're going to be making a series of games based on Sherlock, a BBC series which ended several years ago, but they now have the rights to make games off that. And also in the digital front, the Gloomhaven digital game is getting a Jaws of the Lion DLC. So based specifically on the characters and scenarios from the Jaws of the Lion Gloomhaven set. Fertessa, any of these particularly interesting to you? Are you excited about any of these?
I mean, all of them are new to me, but the title Doctors and Daleks appeals to me, even though I'm not a huge Doctor Who fan. I know who Doctor Who is, so and I like Daleks, so that interests me.
Yeah, that one is interesting because Cubicle 7 has another Doctor Who RPG that is, according to them, still ongoing. They're going to be they have a second edition of it, and they said they're still supporting it. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if this new one is just going to be a spin-off for people who just like D&D's system better, or how much overlap there's going to be there. But that's that's sort of interesting. I am not a doctor. I know nothing about Doctor Who. So I don't know anything about that one. Will, I know you were a Sherlock fan, at least early on.
I watched both of these series
Yeah.
many years ago. I mean, Sherlock. I'm just a general fan of the Sherlock Holmes. What would you call it? Style, just following a smart detective. I don't
Yeah,
know.
the detective genre, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
So, I mean, and I've mentioned before how I always enjoy games like that. So I'm like, all right, let's see how it is. The Doctor Who RPG, Doctor Who has, because it goes through timelines, planets, space. It makes sense for an RPG.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And the Sherlock game I would have guessed would be like a what's it called? What's their crime game called? Crimes Connections?
Case Connection.
Chronicles, Crime Chronicles of Crime.
Chronicles of Crime.
Oh.
Yes, the Sherlock game is called Case Connection. Their other mystery series is Chronicles of Crime.
Oh.
So I thought maybe it would be like a reskin. They didn't really, but it doesn't really look like it. That game uses an app heavily, and this I can't tell exactly what's going on in the pictures they
Maybe
showed.
I don't know. Maybe the audience of Sherlock, they're like, we don't think that they would like to use the app for this one or something.
Yeah, and they did say they're going to have like multiple games, so they could all be totally different.
Hmm.
Um,
I will.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I will say Sobek 2 does seem like the type of gameplay that I like. Possibly auctioning or bidding, which I'm always a fan of.
Yeah, I have not played this one, the original one either, but it looks intriguing. I was actually going to ask you, what are your thoughts in general about two-player like spin-offs of games? Do you find that's usually helpful? Do you ever
Mhm.
do you usually play with just one other person and feel like, man, I wish this game was better?
I love the two players spinoffs because two player is a very interesting count to design for, and often, not always, but often a game that plays well at 5 will not play as well as 2 at 2, and a game that plays well at 2 will not necessarily scale up as well, because
Mm,
the way that you get people to interact will be totally different, and it could be a lot, the tension will be different. So if you're keeping like the same gameplay between the player counts and you're only like deducting like resources or something like that, it's hard to keep that same tension. But for games that do kind of adapt for that two player, then that's not a problem. But when they create just two player, like Seven Wonders Duel, love that.
mm,
So that's why I think it's totally worth it when they do that.
yeah,
Yeah, I feel in particular single player and two player are ones that really need to be more crafted around.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
In particular, oh, single player is pretty obvious because there's only one person, but a lot of times in two player, I mean, we even talked about this just recently, or actually we'll talk about probably later the games we played.
Mm-hmm.
That sometimes because you can just focus on the other person,
Yep.
it's easier to hurt them more,
Mm-hmm.
or it's because the game is balanced with everyone sort of being able to poke at each other. So if it doesn't just have really strict special rules like this is how we designed it with these two people going head to head in mind, it can sort of just becomes a snowball kind of effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, from my understanding, balancing a game is very hard. And just the player count alone, it's like you can have such a different experience. It's a tough thing from my perspective, not having actually designed or published a game, but I feel like, you want to get that like magic 2 to 4 or 2 to 5 number is great on a box, but to actually make a game play well at all those counts, and also like what a bummer if you make a game and it can play for 2 players, but it should really be 3 or more, and then someone plays it for the first time with 2 and comes away with a bad experience. It's like, how do you get that messaging across and
Mm-hmm.
try to represent the game in the best light and everything like that? uh so yeah, but it's also cool that I guess it's sort of like them admitting that, yeah, the other one did not work well for 2 players. We screwed up. The other one, by the way, the original Sobek, I don't know if this new one is being published by Pandasaurus, who I don't know if they have the rights. They must, I assume, to the original one, but it was originally published by GameWorks, I think. So, and it looked like a much smaller box. This one looks like a bigger box, but that could just be the picture on the website. At any rate, you can pre-order Sobek 2 players right now. It's going to be coming out in May. The Doctor Who and Sherlock games are later this year, and there's no date yet for Jaws of the Lion DLC, but you can pre-order that too on Steam right now. Do us a favor, like this video, subscribe to our channel, or if you really like us, you can support us on Patreon. Become a high roller today for exclusive bonus content. We also have a podcast now. You can check that out at rollforcrit.com/podcast. Weekly episodes with special guests you definitely want to listen to.